You're tuned in to The Last Radio Show.
Hello and welcome to The Last Radio Show. I'm John Lynch.
I'm Jenn Reilly.
And this is a show where we talk about all kinds of stuff, news, history, pop culture, whatever we feel like. And today we are going to talk about late night television.
Mm-hmm. So controversial.
So controversial. And this is not new. There's always controversials with all the shows. But the big news this past week, Stephen Colbert, Late Night with Stephen Colbert, they announced it's going to be canceled and next May, I believe.
Which, by the way, did you see him announce it to his audience? I just kind of quickly watched. That was wild.
Yeah. Nobody had any idea this was coming. It was kind of out of nowhere.
And it's also wild that they let him on the air because, you know, in radio, when they fire you, they don't want you back on.
That's the last thing you want to
right?
do.
They don't let you on.
You know, and they're going to let him, broadcast
to
for
a whole show,
quite a while.
A year.
I mean, for months, so almost a year. But so they're gonna end the Late Show, and they're not just canceling him. They're not just firing him. They're eliminating the show altogether.
Yeah.
So the Late Show actually started when David Letterman went to CBS after he left NBC.
Okay.
So it was originally David Letterman was the host, and then Stephen Colbert took over when Letterman retired. So
that was after Letterman didn't get the Tonight Show, right?
Right, and we're going to get into all that.
All right, I need the chronological order of this.
Because it all started with the Tonight Show, but a lot of people are talking with the Stephen Colbert thing. CBS just had the lawsuit with Donald Trump, and they had to pay him a bunch of money, and some people think like maybe this was part of the deal that like this guy who always makes fun of him, he didn't want on TV anymore. Who knows? But, I think if that were true, they would have taken him off the air immediately. They wouldn't give him all this time.
He's got a year to get back to get his digs in.
With nothing to lose, too.
Exactly, right?
I know. That's why they don't let you back on TV and radio when they fire you. So it's definitely going to be interesting over the next few months.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be definitely some stuff going on, with that. But so let's talk about the late night situation right now. So you got Stephen Colbert on CBS.
Right.
You got Jimmy Kimmel on ABC. You have The Tonight Show, of course, the legendary Tonight Show. Jimmy Fallon is currently the host of that. And late night after Jimmy Fallon is Seth Meyers is the host. So a lot of Saturday Night Live alumni, a lot of Daily Show alumni hosting these shows.
Sure, yeah.
The Daily Show is kind of intertwined. I don't know if you'd really call it a late night show, but it is kind of intertwined with the late night shows.
When was the Daily Show on? That's right. I actually never watched it on TV.
It's on usually at 11 o'clock. I think.
Okay, so it's a late night show.
Yeah,
okay.
But it's not really. It's a little bit different format. They don't really do as much like the couch and having like a bunch of celebrities come in. They usually do have guests, but it's not like the traditional. I think
Johnny
the Tonight
Carson.
Show model is what people think of late night TV. You got a host, he comes out and does a monologue, maybe there's a couple of bits, then they have like a celebrity, another celebrity, maybe somebody wacky who's like, has a dog that can sing or something like that. And then there's usually a musical guest too, there's always a band or somebody performing at the end of the show. And that's kind of the traditional format. So that's really, ABC, NBC, and CBS right now. So let's talk about the Tonight Show, because the Tonight Show has been around for like a million years.
Yeah. When did it start?
It started, I think, in the 50s, I believe. Okay. And Jack Paar hosted it for a while. There was other hosts before that, too. And so, but Jack Paar was kind of like the one who kind of put it on the map.
Right.
He was like the original. He wasn't the original host of it, but he was kind of the one where it went kind of mainstream. And he actually, and again, this is going back to the 50s or maybe early 60s, he actually walked off the show one day because they censored a joke he was going to tell.
Oh.
And the joke, I don't know what the joke was, but it reportedly by today's standard was nothing that would even be close to being censored.
It was a little too tame for
So he actually
audience.
Walked off the show like in the middle of the show, and like his co-host or, like his sidekick had to like host the show like randomly.
Oh, wow.
And they had to negotiate with him for a couple of months to come back.
Wow.
And he very famously,
Crazy.
you can find the clip on YouTube. He comes out on his first night back. He comes out to do his monologue, and his opening line was, "As I was saying," and he just kind of picked up right from where he left off several months before. So he eventually left the show, and that's when Johnny Carson took over. And that really is the golden age of the Tonight Show,
Sure.
I think.
And that was where he made people famous on that show, right? To get on that
show. Absolutely. He hosted it from 1962 to 1992. So
wow.
30 years, which is just an incredible run. And of course, Ed McMahon was, his sidekick all those years. Doc Severinsen, he was the band leader. He always wore like crazy jackets. And again, it was the classic format of what a late night talk show is. And he had his friends always come out. He was pals with Bob Newhart and Don Rickles, and so they were always regulars on it. And like you said, it made stars, especially comedians.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You hear a lot of comedians talk about like the big moment of their career, like Jerry Seinfeld and a lot of other people will talk about was the first time they were on the Tonight Show. Mm-hmm. And there was like a kind of a pecking order because the first time you were on, you just came and did stand up. You didn't get to go over to the couch and talk to him.
Right, because you weren't yet famous enough for that.
Enough, yeah, but if he gave you like the okay sign after your set, you knew you were good.
Right.
And if he didn't, you knew you were never coming back again.
And of course, this is like predating, how celebrities are made now is so different. This was like the first kind of like, not social media, but just like this mass, like,
right.
Like getting to know a celebrity on a personal level rather than,
right.
That didn't happen there. There was no way to do that.
Yeah, it's that was kind of going viral, being on the Tonight Show back in the day, And he like you said made a lot of stars. So there was always like an attempt to like for other networks to do a rival to the Tonight Show, and they never worked for years and years. He was undisputed king, but like Chevy Chase very famously had a late night talk show.
I mean, that was so disappointing, right? I wanted that to be like the best, right?
Sure. And the Pat Sajak, famous for the Wheel of Fortune. Nobody does because it lasted about 3 months, I think.
Right.
Magic Johnson, he had a talk show, the Magic Hour it was called, and that is epically bad. If you ever watch clips of that, that's probably even worse than the Chevy Chase show. It's close because they're both pretty bad. But he just had no skills like to interview people. Alan Thicke, who was on Growing Pains, he had like he was supposed to be like a cool, edgy show when he was younger, like in the late 80s, early 90s, and that didn't work at all. But the biggest one, and probably maybe one of the biggest feuds of the Carson era, was Joan Rivers.
Yeah, I don't remember that either.
Yeah, she had a talk show. She went to Fox. Now, for years and years, Joan Rivers was Johnny Carson's fill-in.
Okay.
She would host the Tonight Show. Johnny took a lot of time off. He would take weeks off at a time, and he usually didn't do Mondays. I think he would always have a guest host on Mondays. Okay. And they always used to have revolving hosts, but eventually Joan Rivers became the permanent replacement host for him.
Oh.
And the idea was that when he stepped down, she would get the Tonight Show.
Oh, I know.
So in the interim, she was waiting for Johnny to retire, basically, and he never
30
retired.
Years, right?
Yeah, it was a long time, and he kept signing new contracts, and NBC didn't want to lose him because his ratings were so good. So she eventually signed a deal with the Fox network when they first were starting out in the early days, and Johnny Carson had nothing to do with her after that.
Oh, of course.
He took a lot of this stuff very personal. He was an interesting guy in like his personal life. I mean, he was married many times, and that was like jokes he made a lot. Supposedly he was not a warm and cuddly guy in the real
really?
world. Yeah. As charming as he was on the show.
Yeah, he was super charming on the show. You wouldn't think that.
He was like, he could get cranky. So I don't think he was necessarily a bad guy, but he was not warm and fuzzy, and if you crossed him, he was done with you.
Oh.
And that's what happened to Joan Rivers. And so she was banned from the Tonight Show. She couldn't come back after.
How was her show? Was it
didn't
not
last
a
long.
success?
Yeah.
Right?
Initially it had some rating success, but then it kind of faded away quickly.
Wow.
The one person who had a little bit of success running against Carson was Arsenio Hall.
That was a good show.
He
was like for the younger generation, I think, right?
Like that was hip and cooler.
Yeah, he was
like
cool.
I said, that's what they were trying to do with Alan Thicke, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
But Arsenio Hall did it. Remember, he did the Wolf Pack, woof 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 woof. That was always the thing, when they had people on there.
And I think that when I was younger, Johnny Carson was a little too old for me in terms of wanting to watch. But Arsenio was right there,
right. And he had hipper younger guests too. He was having younger comedians and stuff like that. And he had some success, but it didn't last that long, only about 5 years, which is not bad in TV terms, but compared to the 30 of Carson.
Yeah.
And, Carson just kept going after Arsenio Hall left. They tried to revise it a couple of times, but it never really worked after that.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, in the late 80s, early 90s, he was pretty popular. And the very famous guest he had one time was Bill Clinton.
Right.
When he was running for president and nobody really knew who he was yet, Bill Clinton jammed with the band on the saxophone.
Yep.
And that's like kind of an iconic moment. And some people felt that like really connected with voters, and that might have helped him become president.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
It was definitely, a big part of it. So when NBC had the Tonight Show going for all these years, they several times tried to like start a show after it to kind of keep
like
that
a
audience.
late show.
A
right?
late show.
Late show.
A late show. No,
right.
no. You can see where we're going with this.
Right.
They tried a couple of different things, and it didn't really quite work until the early 80s when they hired this guy named David Letterman.
Mm-hmm.
Now, David Letterman, to me, it's a tie between him and Conan O'Brien, and they feature pretty prominently in this story. But those are my two favorite late night hosts.
Okay.
I think, I kind of go back and forth which one's my favorite, but David Letterman started the Late Show after Carson. It became, again, for the younger people, too.
Yeah, right.
It was a little later. It was an hour later, so it was 11:30 to 12:30 that the Tonight Show was on, and then 12:30 on, it was Letterman.
And Letterman, by the way, was cranky, but we liked it. It was something that
was part of his personality.
You liked his crankiness. You liked his kind of bitterness.
Absolutely. and him and Paul Schaefer. Paul Schaefer's just so weird and quirky.
Yeah.
And they had and they would do the strangest stuff. I mean, obviously the top 10 list is legendary.
Right.
They did stupid pet tricks. He would randomly go like onto the top of a building and throw things off the top of the building.
This is great. I loved David Letterman.
There's a famous clip where he wore a suit made of Alka-Seltzer tablets and jumped into a giant pool. Right. And that like almost killed him apparently. Like that was like a bad chemical reaction. And there was one time where he had a Velcro suit and he jumped up and just stuck to the wall. There's so many great things. And he had the long run. And Johnny Carson, he was kind of Johnny's protege in a lot of ways. They were close. But around the same time, a young comedian by the name of Jay Leno started filling in on the Tonight Show. So he kind of replaced Joan Rivers as the permanent fill-in host for the Tonight Show. And this is when it gets good. This is when the drama starts. And it's such an amazing domino effect that we're going to be talking about here, because this one led to this one, which led to this one, which led to this one. So you had Johnny Carson and David Letterman, the undisputed kings of late night.
Yes.
You had Jay Leno filling in. So eventually Johnny Carson decides to retire. And again, that was 92. So there was this big debate. Who gets the spot? Who's going to replace Johnny? And it was clearly either going to be Jay Leno or David Letterman. Most people felt it was going to be David Letterman.
Who did you want? Because I definitely wanted Letterman.
I definitely wanted Letterman.
Yeah, I remember.
Absolutely.
I felt like Jay Leno was the Doritos guy. I was like, who? Exactly. I didn't really know him. Exactly. Nice guy, but
he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
He's funny, obviously. Yeah. I mean, not shocking. All these guys are funny. But, he seemed like the safer choice.
Okay.
And again, there's the David Letterman was a little edgier.
Yeah.
And Jay Leno was more middle America's going to like him. And that's the way NBC went. So they decided that Jay Leno was going to take over for Johnny Carson. Reportedly, Johnny Carson was not pleased about this. He thought it should have been Letterman. But he's like, well, I'm retiring, so I can't get involved in this. So there was all this kind of back and forth of what's David Letterman going to do.
Right.
Is he going to stay on the Late Show? Is he going to
and be featured after Leno? That was the pecking order, right?
Kind of be, Leno would just replace Carson. So pretty shortly after that, David Letterman moved to CBS, and he went up head to head against Leno.
Yeah,
and they formed the David Letterman The Late Show, and that was on right 11:30. They were on against each other. And that was a battle. That was pretty epic those first few years. And to be fair, Leno won more than Letterman did.
Right.
Leno had better ratings overall. At first, Letterman had kind of a lockhold on it.
Yeah.
But as time went on, Leno just kind of kept going and going and going. Now, they both did pretty well.
Right.
And that's when they also started doing other shows. Like I said, Jimmy Kimmel on ABC, and they started, doing other stuff. And so it kind of, and again, this is also at the time that cable TV started. Mm-hmm. So there were more viewing options.
Sure.
Johnny Carson for those 30 years, if you weren't watching Johnny Carson, you were watching an old movie on the other channel. I mean, that was basically the only two choices you had, essentially. But, by the time the 90s came around, there were a lot more options for people to watch different stuff. So they were going at it back and forth. Now, Letterman's old show, the Late Show with on NBC after Jay Leno, needed a replacement. So they went and got this writer from The Simpsons who was named Conan O'Brien. And he was quirky and weird in his own way, too. Very charming, Sure. Conan O'Brien right now has the most popular podcast on Conan O'Brien and a Friend. Yeah, it's like the number 1 or number 2 podcast in the country. Just a very charming guy. At first, when he first started the show, the critics hated him.
Yeah.
And he kind of got bashed and like, oh, how are you going to fill David Letterman's shoes? Mm-hmm. And the first couple of years were kind of rough. And he definitely was young and nervous. You could tell if you watch clips of the early show. But he eventually grew into the role and became his own thing.
Right.
And was very successful. Eddie Richter, of course, his sidekick on the show.
Yeah. I never watched much of him. I think it was because I watched it early on when he was nervous and I kind of was like, as a Letterman fan, you're like, I guess switch to Cheers. I mean, reruns. I don't know.
Exactly. Whatever was on the local channels. So again, that was for years. That was going on, and there were other people like Colin Ferguson had a show for a while, and he was very funny. And there was also there was a lot of different people and a lot of moving parts. So at one point in 2010, Jay Leno says he's going to step down. From the Tonight Show. And so they say, okay, it's going to be a year from now. Conan O'Brien's going to take over. We don't want the nonsense that happened the last time because it was so much bad publicity. We want a nice, smooth transition. What could possibly go wrong? So they do that. And Jimmy Fallon takes over Conan O'Brien's old show. Right. So he takes over late night. So it's going to be Conan O'Brien and Jimmy Fallon.
Who I love, by the way, Jimmy Fallon. Love him.
Jimmy Fallon.
I mean, he's the best.
I mean, as we said, all these guys are funny.
All these guys are funny. But he's one of my favorites, I have to say.
He's pretty good. Not afraid to laugh at himself.
Yes, I like it. Exactly. He's goofy.
So that's the situation. And they're saying, like, Jay Leno's still going to do stuff. We're going to come up with a new project for Jay Leno. He's just not going to host the Tonight Show anymore. Because he didn't want to, or that's undetermined? He said he was going to retire initially, and then maybe he didn't want. Maybe he was using that as a negotiation ploy. Maybe they think. Maybe he really wanted them to ask him to stay and to throw him a boatload of money to stay. And NBC just said, no, we're going to put the other guy on. And good. So they eventually took Jay Leno and they gave him a show at 10 o'clock. Mm-hmm. So he did his own show, like the Jay Leno show at 10 o'clock. Bombed. Yeah. Nobody was watching it. Didn't do well. Now, also, Conan O'Brien was not doing well. The Tonight Show had the ratings were dropping. Again, Conan O'Brien is a little quirky. So if you're used to Jay Leno, who is very safe, very mainstream, you may not get all of Conan's humor. And
Letterman was still on at this point, the rival? Was still on CBS. So you can choose that. Yes. You can choose Letterman.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the situation. And after just a few months, they say, you know what? We're going to put Letterman back and we're going to move Conan back to 12:30. And Conan said no. Right. So they fired Conan O'Brien. He had the shortest tenure of anybody on the Tonight Show. Yeah. He eventually went to TBS and did the Conan Show, which ran for a lot of years and was very popular, did very well on that. And so Jay Leno came back. Oh. And the first public appearance that Conan O'Brien made after all this went down was on David Letterman's show.
Of course.
He actually went on David Letterman. I mean, and so you can find the clips of it on YouTube. When he sits down and he comes out, everybody cheers. And it's just the two of them looking at each other and smiling, and everybody's just going insane because they just said, "You want to start?" And I think Conan said, somewhere Jay is watching, he's got a secret feed,
right?
So this, Conan went to TBS, and again, there's all these options now, Jimmy Fallon and all this different kind of stuff going on. Letterman's still going. And The Daily Show is very popular with Jon Stewart. That was originally hosted by Craig Kilborn for a few years. Then Jon Stewart. Then Trevor Nolan took over. Now, recently, Jon Stewart is back semi-regularly on the show.
Oh, okay.
But there were other guys on that show, like Stephen Colbert, who ended up going into the late-night game as well. So when Leno again decided to retire, and everybody was kind of like, is he serious this time?
Right.
Are you going to go away? How can we miss you if you don't leave, kind of thing?
Right.
They decided that it was going to be Jimmy Fallon going to The Tonight Show, which Leno did and did not come back, did not try to take the show back. Jimmy Fallon's been hosting it ever since.
Right.
And as we mentioned, that they got on the Late Show, Seth Meyers came over from Saturday Night Live. And, again, there's a lot of ties with The Daily Show. There's a lot of ties with Saturday Night Live with a lot of these shows. A lot of history from all these guys. So that's the lineup right now. You got Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers on NBC doing The Tonight Show. Jimmy Kimmel's still going on ABC. For now,
okay.
You got Stephen Colbert, who took over after Letterman retired.
Okay, he took over. I was trying to. I haven't watched late night in a long time, clearly, but I was trying to figure out.
That's the problem too, because a lot of people are going to say the same exact thing you just said. Right. I have not watched late night. The thing is, now you can watch the clips the next morning on YouTube. Yeah. If something really funny, if Stephen Colbert really had a great joke in his monologue, you're going to see it. It's going to be on your Twitter feed. It's going to be on your Facebook feed. It's going to be on YouTube.
Yeah, and that's all you really need. You have to invest any time in it. And the other thing is that the celebrities that you were so enamored with, that you couldn't wait to get a little slice of their life. You're watching them eat breakfast now on on TikTok or whatever. You don't have to have that insight anymore.
Yeah, it's not like you're only going to see them once every year or so when they got a new movie coming out.
Right, you're talking to them daily. You're watching,
Yeah, and you know their every move basically.
Exactly.
So you can kind of cyber stalk them.
So maybe it's going away also because it's just not enough. A need for it anymore, unfortunately, right?
Yeah, no, I think that is. And then, obviously the other thing that people are saying is it's getting too political now.
Right.
And now Stephen Colbert, they're talking about he's always been, but that's always been Stephen Colbert's thing. Right. When he was on the Daily Show, when he had the Stephen Colbert Report, where he was kind of like doing a mock Bill O'Reilly show.
Yes, right.
That's who he is. I mean, this is nothing new. And he's been on the air. That's how
I see him. I never watched him other than that. I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been kind of a skewer of political stuff. And, he's been successful at it for over 20 years now.
Right.
And, this show has been on for 10 years. So it's not like it failed per se. The ratings are still pretty decent.
Really?
CBS is saying the official reason is just getting too expensive to produce.
Okay.
Now, Stephen Colbert probably has a pretty big salary and, millions of dollars a year, whatever it may be. And, I guess the advertising dollars aren't there because, like you're saying, the audiences aren't as big anymore.
Yeah, that's just the nature of the beast, I think.
And again, there's multiple choices. Again, Johnny Carson for decades kind of had a stranglehold on it. And, it's the change of the way media goes.
Yeah, definitely.
So what do you... Go ahead.
Yeah, I never Stephen Colbert. I always felt like, I guess because I saw his early stuff, he always seemed like a principal or something. I couldn't relate to him myself, but I guess I didn't get it in the beginning, and then I just kind of never watched again. I
mean, he's kind of got a mock sense of authority to him.
Yeah, I didn't understand it, and then I just never watched it. So, in the beginning, I didn't understand it or I couldn't relate because I thought these guys are supposed to be your buddies, like Leno and Letterman, not so much, but he was more just like a curmudgeon.
There was a show on Comedy Central that Stephen Colbert was on. I think it was Strangers with Candy was the name of it.
Okay, yeah.
And he played a principal in it.
So maybe that's where I'm getting it from. Something like a principal,
could be buried in your mind,
authority figure in my head that I can't get past. But I know that it's not right, and it's all it's make believe. But
he's very good at playing. He's kind of always playing a character.
Yeah,
even as the host of his show now, he's kind of again this. he's not as genuine, and I don't mean that as an insult necessarily. Right. He's kind of doing a
He's like an actor. Yes, like a shtick, right. Yeah. Whereas like Jimmy Fallon, you feel like he's just like an open book. Yes. He's just like a beating heart on the stage. Yes. You're just like, wow, this guy, everything is on his sleeve. So I couldn't get past that with him, but I didn't not like him. I was like, oh, it's okay. If I'm in the mood for like, kind of like, I don't know. I just couldn't get that far with him.
Right. No,
but I feel bad. And I did see his speech saying goodbye. And I was like, wow. That's pretty heartfelt.
And he's genuine. And again, all these guys are pretty decent people, I think. Yeah. And I know Stephen Colbert, like, contributed, like, he basically built a school in his old hometown because, like, the school was, like, falling apart, so he put a new building in. So I mean, these are good people, and again, very funny people with a long history. And, he's going to do fine.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's not going to lose his house over this. I mean, he's got a few $1 million in the bank, I'm sure. And
sure.
Tomorrow he could sign a contract with somebody and do something. And probably will. Yeah.
But what takes this time slot? Did they announce that?
They haven't announced yet. So
it can't be like the news. I mean, what even?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. They could be. I mean, the other like late night show that was around for years and still around, I believe, was Nightline, which was a news show kind of thing. 2020 was on for a long time. A lot of times it was either going to be like a Tonight Show thing or a news thing. So I don't know if they're going to go that way because now you don't really need those news shows anymore because you have 24-hour news channels.
That's true. I don't think that's going to bring in the ratings. No, I think Seinfeld reruns will be better.
That might be the thing. It's kind of a comfort food
more
kind of thing. I don't know what you put there. Maybe we'll get a show.
Okay. We work cheap, by the way.
We work very cheap. We're not proud at all. Exactly. We'll do whatever you ask us to. Thank you for listening to The Last Radio Show. If you like the show, please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review on your favorite platform. You can check us out on Facebook and Instagram at The Last Radio Show. We will talk to you soon.
The Last Radio Show. The Last Radio Show.